share a memory. So please enjoy the presentation to follow.
Hi, I have so many fond memories of Joe Kempler, working with him in service. I'd share a few of those with you. Wells would call us on Saturday morning. That's because we go to the hospital. We had a brother or sister in the hospital. Of course, I'd pick up Joe and we'd go, and he always got so much pleasure and joy from helping one of our brothers or sisters who were hospitalized. We would share scripture, we'd offer prayer, and try to give the person some encouragement. I really enjoyed that. We'd never gone on a study together, and actually I just started to study with a young fellow, just graduated from high school. I asked Joe if he'd like to join me, and of course he said he would. And so I introduced him to the young man. I was so impressed with him. I could tell he really wanted to help him, and he was so kind and patient. He really enjoyed that family. And the grandfather lived there with them, and he came down, and he and Joe got along so well. They really enjoyed each other's company. Our second visit, they were so impressed with Joe that they gave him a very large Bible. It was very expensive. He told me what kind of one it was. And he passed it on to the branch so that all of us could enjoy it. But family moved away after a few weeks, and wherever they went, I'm sure that they remembered Joe Kempler, as we all do.
Thank you. That was beautiful videos. And now's the time we're going to, Brother Paul Kempler is going to make an arrangement so we can raise hands and share a thought. And he wanted me to share one that I remember, Joe. And it's really kind of insignificant, but just to start the ball rolling, it really helped me. It was when David and I were fishing. And Joe, it was many years ago, David Kempler, were up here in the mountains fishing. And Joe went along. Of course, he didn't want to fish. He just enjoyed the outdoors. And he picked up an acorn from the ground. And he said to me, he says, "Smell that." And I smelled it. He says, "It smells just like port," because it had been aging and it smelled like the cork of a port bottle. And I said, "You know, it really does." And he just would take in nature. And I remember that simple little thing. And that's like, helped me to, enjoy the little things and be appreciative for the little things. So that's something I remember. And now we're going to take some hands. Maybe you have a nice memory to share as well.
If you have a comment to make, please raise your hand and we will unmute you so that you can share your thoughts. We're going to hear from Sister Jolene Chu.
Hello, family. My love to all of you. And Susie, who we don't see, and Jeff and family as well, Virginia. I love you all. I guess that my memories are so many of being with Joe and Ginny, and some of the most happy times, some of the struggles. I think I saw the range and really could grasp the depth of your family, the depth of your feelings. And so what I'd like to share is maybe not a memory going back, but a thought going forward, because I saw with my own eyes how Joe struggled with his intellect and the feelings inside that he couldn't make come out. He knew what you deserved. He wanted to give you what you deserved for all your devotion to him. And it was a source of frustration to him when sometimes he just couldn't express it. But I'm thinking about that day when he finally feels for himself what you felt for him, all that love and devotion you showed for him. And as much as he appreciated and loved you in his own way as he was, I'm just smiling to think about how when he finally feels what you felt for him and he's able to give it back, what a joyful moment that will be for all of you. I would love to be on the sidelines at that moment, just enjoying that time. Thank you for everything you've done for him, and thank you for all the part you had in making him the man and the brother that he was. Love you all.
Thank you.
We really appreciate
It's
that.
beautiful. Thank you.
And by the way, we're having a party for the comeback moment, so we're all invited. Very good. And now we are going to let's go with I'm gonna have you pronounce your last name because this is my failing right now. Thank you, Jolene.
Love you.
Brother Palekia? See, I knew I
Thank
said it
you.
wrong.
Thank you. We were moved by this service and by the slides and the talk of the personal experiences. And Virginia, we remember fondly there are times, Renata and me with you, at some of these special events at universities and even at a high school in Connecticut. So when Joe would talk to the academics and future academics as students, he would move the audience. But I remember one of our first events where he was going to be at a university, and he said every time he would tell his story, he would get more into himself. He would feel more relaxed within himself. And I hope he reaches that. If not now, then when he comes back in the resurrection. But his expressions and revealing his inner self helped him, but it also helped Jehovah's Witnesses that were in the audience to be proud that they stood on the shoulders of people that Joe talked about in the camps, who maintained a firm stand for their faith. But I'm sure it also helped the academics and students that heard him to know a little bit more about people that can stand up to the biggest bully there was, that was Adolf Hitler and his henchmen. And Joe was a good example of standing firm once he knew the real issues involved. Our condolences and our love to all in the family.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to show another interview that was shot prior to the service. And then after that, we will be taking more hands and hearing more comments. Thank you, everyone, so far.
I had the extreme privilege over a number of years to travel with Joe Kempler all over the world, giving presentations to schools, educators on his experiences in the Holocaust. So we had a big program planned for Stanford University back in 2001, was when I first met Joe. And the program at Stanford would be for the educators and students. And it would be a combination of history professors along with these Holocaust survivors like Joe Kempler. So we, prior to going to Stanford, all the congregations, the local congregations, got a bunch of people together to go talk to all the schools in the whole Bay Area to see who would like to have these people prior to doing the event at Stanford. And most schools, you know, are sensitive about religion, didn't want religion to come into the school, I guess. But there was one school in San Francisco that they said, we'd love it. Nobody ever comes here and offers, nobody ever wants to come here. They're trying to get out of here. So I took Joe down to the school, and this was really the very last place. It looked like juvenile hall. It was the last place before people just completely gave up on school. Teachers barely were able to keep these guys under control. We get into the room, and one of the requirements is they had to watch Schindler's List first before Joe came to speak. That was a requirement at these. So anyway, we come into class. Guys are yelling, they're shouting, they're throwing paper balls. They're sitting in one seat, feet hanging over the next seat. I mean, totally unruly. So Joe gets up to speak, and you know, they had to see Schindler's List first, and he could tell by the way they were, he adjusted the talk to who those people were. So Joe just kind of kept taking it up a couple notches. He mentions in his interviews that the movie Schindler's List didn't even show probably a tenth of really how bad and horrible it really was. He just started elevating, saying, well, then this happened and this happened. And within 3 minutes, that room was dead silent. Everybody was sitting straight up in their chair. The teacher said he had never seen these students this rapt attention ever be that, be that well behaved. So it made a huge impression on them. And it certainly made an impression on me, because after that, all the questions were respectful. And he just got, after the class, everybody would come up and want to shake his hand. And so that was, never seen anything like that before. Very impressive. He was one of a kind. I've never met anybody like him. And I had known about Joe, for a few years before I met him. And we had a lot in common, I felt, and I thought we were really going to connect. So when we did meet back in 2001, right before Stanford, there was a strong connection at multiple levels. I was born and raised Jewish, and then later started studying the Bible, and the same with Joe. So I was able to relate to him. Well, first of all, he reminded me a lot of my dad. They were born, they came from the same area in Poland. They were raised in New York. They had that, they both spoke Yiddish. They had that little accent, both New York. And so over the years, he came to numerous Kingdom Halls where we gave his presentation. And it would always be, you'd just say, Joe, you got 45 minutes, and bang, he'd just do it perfect. The same story, but just, or you got an hour and a half, or you got, 5 minutes, and he just bang on the nose, do it perfect. It would all make sense. He's an amazing person. He's highly, highly intelligent. Boy, talking to, say, another Jewish rabbi, a whole different respect. It was a respect for the knowledge, how well he knew the Bible, and, not being dogmatic, just being very, logical and simple, and, just starting with, the basics. You couldn't talk to Joe very long and I think not realize that, he was highly intelligent, and, if he was saying something, it was it was important. It was worth listening to.
So my name is Joshua Oranges. I met Joseph Kempler 4 years ago for a school project. In 8th grade, middle school, we had to do a historical assignment on either an event, a group of people on that took a stand against oppression. And I heard about Joseph Kempler and his story, and I definitely thought that it would be an amazing, rare opportunity to do an interview with him for my project. So in about March, I met with him at his house. I was pretty nervous, to be honest. It was a very rare experience anyone could have, but I definitely enjoyed doing it. It was an experience I probably will never forget as long as I live. And just hearing about the things he went through and his journey towards the truth was interesting. And I definitely would say that it was the most amazing, faith strengthening experience in the world. There are people that could break you down from what you believe in or who you are. And I learned that having faith is one of the most powerful tools we could ever have in us when we're facing any kind of oppression or suffering. And the way we fight back is standing tall and keeping our head up and learning from amazing examples of people and applying them can really strengthen us and move forward.
Thank you very much for those. And then now we'd love to hear your comments again. So if you have a comment that you would like to make, please raise your hand and we're going to make a selection here. You're looking for the yellow hand. Anywhere from. Okay, can we hear from, please, Joel Ingardio?
Hi, everyone. I met Joe Kempler because I directed the documentary Knocking and approached Joe to see if he'd be willing to tell a story on camera for PBS for the world to see. And it was such an honor to be a part of that project and get to know Joe and the Kempler family and Susan and her family. And there's so much material that we couldn't fit into the hour that PBS allowed us to have. And I just remember the trip we all took, Susan and her family and the Kempler family, to Austria and Poland to retrace Joe's steps from his childhood and his experiences in the concentration camps. And it was such an intense period of time that we were filming, and so illuminating, and just an incredible experience. And it was just an honor to be a part of it and to be entrusted to tell the story. And a lot of times people ask, how is it that you were able to capture such intimate footage? And I think part of it was Joe, as emotionally closed as he was, as we hear, people talk about, he was so persistent and trying so hard to open himself up. And I think using the camera crew and the experience as an excuse to have therapy or to tell his story or to dive deep. And but I think it was a wonderful experience. And I think I think everyone, myself included, and the family, I think we, in our own ways, we all were moved by it. And Joe was the center of that. And I'll never forget it. And I'll always be appreciative of being part of that process.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joel.
Virginia. Thank you.
We really appreciate it. And next, we'd like to hear from the Alexanders. And you've been unmuted.
Yes, I think Andy used a good word, impression. I would capsulize it this way: impact. Joe and Virginia have left an impact on our lives. We've known them 20 some years. And not only on our lives, but on Holocaust history. His perspective of viewing the Holocaust outside Jehovah's Witnesses has brought a lot to the actual history of it. But Virginia and the Kemplers, we especially appreciate you folks. Your example and how you adjusted to these things has been an important part of our life. We reflect on it, honestly. But there's only one problem, Virginia. You need different hot sauce. I painted their house and I asked Virginia, do you have any hot sauce for these eggs? And she gave me this stuff called Dave's Insanity. Well, it was properly named because it burned my lips so badly I couldn't feel them for a half hour. And then we read the instructions that said apply with a toothpick. So if you could get something a little different, Virginia, we would appreciate it. But we love you guys, and may Jehovah watch over you.
We love you, Virginia.
We love you back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words. And next, is that this one right here?
Yes.
Okay. And if you were just asked to unmute, we would love to hear from you.
Diane.
Hi, my name is Diana. I want to say hi to the family. Love you guys so much. I had the privilege of spending a few weeks with Joe and Virginia in Colorado, going around to schools. And we had so many good experiences. But one in particular that stands out is a school that was for children that were delinquent, got in trouble for all sorts of things. They'd been in jail or came from very dysfunctional families. And they responded to Joe in an amazing way. And it actually brought Joe out in an amazing way too. So as you know, as we talk about him holding back his feelings, but he was able to bring out things in these kids that no one else could bring out. And it ended up going up much longer than we had actually signed up for. But that was just one of many, many experiences. And I know that that experience has brought out a lot of feelings in me too. I love you guys. Think about you all the time.
Thank you.
Bye,
very much.
Diane.
Thank you. Thank you.
Love you back.
Love you.
We now-
Hugs.
I'm back. We now have our last two interview videos, and we're going to have fun with these.
For those of you who did not know my father very well, he had a shockingly sophisticated sense of humor. He could pull off stunts with an absolutely straight face that those who understood what was happening there's no way they could keep a straight face. And I'm reminded of a story that took place also probably about 25 years ago at a restaurant in Southern California. Very, very nice restaurant. Some of you will know it. It's called the Castaway. And we were finishing lunch on a beautiful sunny afternoon. It was a weekend afternoon. And I don't remember why, but there was quite a group there, probably 20-ish at that group. And my father decided to pay for the luncheon. And so the waiter came over to collect the money. And my father took his wallet out, and he always licked his fingers first, and he pulled out an AT&T calling card. He took his pen, he scratched out AT&T and wrote Visa in, and then handed it to the waiter. The waiter didn't know exactly what to do, but everyone at the table was howling. They could not keep a straight face. We were laughing so hard. And the waiter, trying to be polite, says, okay, and he took it. And then he came back a few minutes later and said, I'm sorry, this didn't go through. And I just thought that was one of the funniest things my father ever did.
Joe is one of those friends where you didn't really have to see each other every year or all the time, but when you did, you just pick up where you left off. And he was just one of those friends for life. That's how I felt about him. I know back in the early 80s when we first started working together, and I learned a little bit about his background and from when he was a teenager and the struggles he went through in the camps. My father was part of the liberation at Dachau with the Allied forces. And when I relayed that to Joe back in the 80s, he said, your father was a good man. I'd really like to know him, and I'd like to personally thank him for what he did. It was an emotional conversation. You know, we were a division of Capitol Records. We shared offices with EMI Studios. We manufactured the products that delivered the music to the consumer, whether it be an audio cassette or an LP record, vinyl record, or through the radio network on an NAB broadcast card. So our clients were primarily engineers. They were production people, ops managers. You know, for the most part, salespeople don't have a technical background. That's where Joe came in, because he was very in tune with not only our product, but all the products from our competitors. And, you know, Joe was our key guy. You know, our vice president of sales, Larry Hockmeyer, used to always refer to Joe as our ambassador. He was the guy that was always key to closing the deal with a big client, let's say a Warner Brothers or a Polygram or an MCA. So we really relied on Joe a lot to not only write all the technical brochures, the papers, and what have you, but he was also a key in helping us close the sale. When I went into his office, if I needed help with a client or with a product issue, you know, if he wasn't on the phone, he always had his nose buried in a book. And he really, really understood the product and studied it just, you know, through and through, backwards and forwards. You know, if you do a Google search with Joseph Kempler and audio devices or Capital Magnetics, you'll find a lot of information. You know, okay. A lot of Billboard magazine was kind of the music industry's reference magazine, and there's many issues where they told stories about Joe and published his papers that he presented. When FM stations became more popular, well, Capitol developed the AA3. It was AA meaning stereo. And that was good for many years. And then while I was there in the early 80s, we had to come up with something even better. And that's when we came up with the AA4. And I believe Joe was very, very instrumental in developing that product. And I know Joe worked on that with his heart and soul, making that product the best. It became the standard in the industry. Practically every station, FM station that was putting music on the air was using our AA4 product. And I credit that to having a superior product. And in that superior product was a result of Joe's involvement in getting it to market. My best memories are going to like the NAB shows, the National Association of Broadcast shows down in Las Vegas. We did demonstrations there. We always had a little booth. That's where I think Joe really shined because he was really good in front of the customer. And I don't know if you know as well, but a lot of these organizations, the National Associated Broadcasters, the NAB, the Society of Broadcast Engineers, the Audio Engineering Society, and the Recording Industry Association of America, they oftentimes called on Joe to do presentations in front of groups. I saw him do a couple presentations, and Joe wasn't, he didn't have a lot of fluff or flowery language. He didn't talk just to hear himself talk, but when he did speak, he chose his words very carefully, and he really commanded the attention and respect of the audience. They just keyed in on every word that he said. And he really had a very good gift for tailoring his presentation to the audience. As I said, if it's a technical engineering group, which many times they were, Joe could be as technical as you wanted to be. But then, oftentimes, as it is, with the salespeople or people that don't have that technical background, he'd simplify it and make analogies. And it was something where people would walk away and they'd thank him and they'd always want to talk to him afterwards. And he was just he was liked by all. As I said, he was soft-spoken. He didn't have a lot to say unless it was important. If we had dinners or lunches together and there was 6 or 8 of us, Joe wasn't the one to dominate the conversation, but when he spoke, people listened. He always had something to say that was meaningful when he said it. There's one thing I use today, even today, I've always said this to my wife, when I get on a plane to go to a job, whether it's in another country or another state, I always tell myself that I'm going on vacation. And I got that from Joe, because Joe he always told me, he says, when I asked him about all the travel that he was doing, he says, when I get on a plane, I'm going on vacation. He says, this is like vacation to me. He says, I enjoy it. And I've always, I borrowed that from Joe. I look at getting on a plane for business as going on vacation. And if you treat it that way, you have fun. I mean, it makes it a lot more enjoyable. It really was an honor to work with Joe. It really was.
Thank you very much for those. And now we're going to take hands raised again so we can call on you. And when you see, please, we'll know that you can speak. So let's do this one. I think I may know these people. I'm pretty sure. Or did we freeze? Oh, no, we're okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, Sally, and let's hear you.
Oh, okay. Hi. Okay, first of all, let me just say how much I am so happy to see you, Virginia, Dave, Paul, Camille, Anita, and of course, my darling April. And I wish I was there with you now. And really, I just want to share a little memory, not much, but the first time I ever met Joe and Virginia. Tom and I were invited to Joe and Virginia's house for dinner. April and Paul had just gotten engaged. And well, I don't know if they got engaged. He just asked her to marry him. But anyway, I thought, what could I bring to the family? And I thought, okay, I'll make some bread. I don't know why I thought of bread, but I did. And I thought pumpernickel and rye bread because it's sort of European. And I thought they would like that. When I came in and I told Joe that I had brought some bread, he quick escorted me to the kitchen and he couldn't wait to unwrap it and take a slice of it and eat it. And he had so much happiness on his face and joy. And I thought, it's just bread. But I thought maybe it was something that from his past, the memory that maybe it was something rare, but maybe he always loved bread. Well, I always loved bread. But there was something about him that just drew me to him from that moment on. I always have such a love for him, love for you, Virginia. I'm so grateful that we were part of this wonderful family. Joe will always be in my heart, and I look forward to the day when he will stand tall with no remembrance of the past, with a good mind and a good body, and we'll all welcome him back. Thank you so much for this. I love you all.
Love you back.
You said it
I
well.
have some,
Yes, you did.
I have something I'd like to say with response to the bread. Joe used to tell me that when he was in the concentration camp, his one wish was that he would have a white shirt, jacket on and have a little locker, and he would have one loaf of bread in it. That was his big dream, to have a loaf of bread. Thank you, Sally.
Thank you so much. And now we will hear from another person who knows my dad pretty well. Julia Berg.
Hi, I'm Julia Oversluit Berg, and I thought you'd be interested in knowing how I met Joe. I was painting the house, and the Seventh-day Adventists came by, and I said, "Did you know that the Seventh-day Adventists were in concentration camps?" And they said, "Yes, and we have a member that's a Holocaust survivor." And the next Saturday, I met Joe for the very first time. So from there, he generously allowed me to interview him, and I got to know the family, and April and Paul and Virginia, and we were able to start. I was very active with the OSHA Lifelong Learning, OLLI, and we started an annual Day of Remembrance in Reno, and he very generously attended and was part of the programs, and one of the programs was with the children from Northern Nevada. So I know he loved to always be around telling his story to the children. But he was a marvelous man, and I love him and the family. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate you sharing that. And what about this one?
I don't know.
Is this the one that? You may, just one moment, please. Okay. If you were unmuted, we'd love to hear from you. That would be me.
Is this me? Am I on?
Hi.
I met Joe Kempler in 2003 in Iowa. I had heard so much about him for years, but I wanted so badly to meet him because there aren't that many Jewish people that come into the truth. I was baptized in 1972. My parents were also in Germany. They have a very similar background. And they told me that when I became one of Jehovah's Witnesses, that they would never speak with me again. And they really meant it. My father never did speak with me. 33 years ago, he didn't. And then he died in 2003. But when I was in Iowa, I had the privilege of having dinner after a college presentation with Virginia and Joe. And I said to Joe, I'll never understand how my family cannot talk to me ever again. I just don't understand, you know. And Joe helped me to understand like nobody else could have. He helped me to understand who my father was and why he was reacting the way he was, as well as the rest of my family. And it really did something for me that I'll never forget, and I can never be thankful enough for. And so Joseph Kempler is very dear to my heart. And when I heard he passed away, it made me sad, but I was so happy to know he will never hurt me. So I'm very thankful, and my heart goes out to all of you.
I'm so happy to hear from you, and I remember your story, so I hope sometime we can connect again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna bring on another name here, and help me out, please. We're gonna go with Judy here. I'm gonna ask you to unmute. Could you tell us how you know the family, please? Because that would be helpful. Our minds are a little off.
Well, I had the privilege of meeting Brother and Sister Kempler during the filming of Knocking. And it was such an honor to meet you all. And it was such a joy to be a part of that. And Brother Kempler reminded me of my dad from when he was in the concentration camp as well. And I will never forget Sister Kempler saying she'd always looked for a good Jewish man to marry because she knew that they treated their wives well. And I never forgot that. And he was, or they both were so precious.
Well, I think I see you there. Hello.
Hello.
Anyway, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
I have something else I want to say.
I'll hold it up for you.
This new addition to our family is not only gorgeous, but precious. And poor Joe did not get a chance to see him, but he became a grandfather, great-grandfather, just before his death. And we are so happy to have Noah in our family now. And we consider this quite a blessing. And we would like you to share the picture with us. Thank you.
Very good. How about next? Again, please give us the info as to our relationship. The Bylers.
Hi, Virginia. I don't know if you remember me or not, but you and Joe, all those years ago over in La Cañada, you and him took me under your wings and helped me so much. And I loved being with you and Joe, and being in service with Joe was always such a treat. And same with you, Virginia. And I remember Joe always saying, I hope I meet a rabbi today. He wanted to meet a rabbi. And I thought, well, why do you want to meet a rabbi? And he said, I thought, well, at the time, my calmness in the truth was still needed a lot of developing. And I thought, oh, he's like me. He wants to get a hold of a Baptist preacher, or a rabbi, like I want to get a hold of a Baptist preacher and let him have it. But Joe said, no, I just want to have a calm conversation with him. And that was very special. And I remember learning so much from you guys. And Virginia, I remember working with you on your estate sales, a couple of them. I don't know how good of a worker I was, because I spent a lot of time just looking at all the stuff going, wow. But Virginia, you guys, I miss you guys so much. And I'm sorry I wasn't able to keep in touch with you guys for all these years, but I do miss you. And I miss Joe, and I miss all the fun that you guys had. Oh, one more thing. I remember I house sat for you guys, and I got to see Joe's record collection. And he said, Alan, you can play whatever you want. And it was saying it was a collection is kind of putting it mildly. It was huge. It took up a whole wall in their living room. And he said, Alan, I don't care what you play. You can play whatever you want. But if you're going to play the 1812 overture, don't play it with the volume all the way up. You'll ruin my stereo system.
Oh, you froze. Hopefully that's not all of us, but we loved that story. That was good.
Thank you for your memories. Thank you so much.
So can somebody give us some feedback from the hosting if we are frozen, please? Oh, I hear you now. You've moved again. We loved you. Did you hear our response to you? Okay, you're probably muted now because you finished your comment. Let me take a look. All right, so my mom asked me to share an experience that I had, and I want to share that with the group. And then we're probably going to wrap it up because we can provide information for the group in terms of, like, if you want to reach out to my mom, I'll give you her contact information so that you can reach out to her or to us. But one thing that was brought out by a lot of the different videos that I really, really appreciated was how my dad was able to speak to people from different perspectives. And I really, really appreciated that myself. I remember being in the Eagle Rock congregation when I was about probably 9 years old, and starting to get a grasp of things from a spiritual level. But I had a hard time understanding the book of Revelation, really hard. And my dad was able to take Revelation 7, 5, 7, and 14. Those, I still remember it to this day because he was able to make something complicated, heavenly life versus earthly life, and make it so simple that to this day, I still remember it. And it was good from a spiritual level, but it was also good from a personal level to be able to understand my father. And that is one thing that I work on myself, is to provide simple information that hits the points and is able to address various ones. And that hopefully is something that I inherited from my father. So just some great positive thoughts that we all had today. I seriously would like to send out huge thank yous to the ones that put together the videos, to the ones that did their job in hosting, and to all the ones who made comments or did interviews. It was a really amazing, positive thing. And from our family, we didn't plan any of this, but and forgive me, Rick, you did a great job too. And Chuck as the chairman, of course. We really appreciate both. And that's why I need help, because I'm getting older. So, but thank you all very, very much. And we can stick on a little bit. We can take off the muting if people want to talk openly, but that will end the formal structure of this meeting.
I would like to thank all those who were with us for this and will remember Joe with us. Thank you.
And we are now on gallery view. Oh, and thank you to all you too. So it's open. Let's unmute everybody as a host and let's have some fun.
That was fantastic.
Love you all so much. It was so good to be here and love you all.
And I'd just like to say real quick that I got to know the family a lot newer than the rest of you. I got to know them through knocking and the altered eye. Knocking first, and then a few years ago, a friend there in one of your congregations in Reno gave me the altered eye. And this gives you love about your family, because I went to work on a Kingdom Hall in Tahoe, and a sister invited us to dinner, me and my husband and our family. I had no idea who she was. We went to dinner, and I, of course, being myself, getting to know them, I'm like, tell me your story. How did you learn the truth? And the brother says, well, let me start with my dad. He was a concentration camp survivor. And all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute. I just got a book I'm about ready to read. What was your dad's name? I hadn't even looked at the book with the name of I hadn't asked the sister her last name. And she said, it's Joe Kempler, was my father-in-law. And I'm like, unbelievable. They had us over for dinner and I didn't realize who it was that invited us. So over dinner, I got all excited and I went home and read the book immediately, got to know the family better, and then made arrangements to come and meet them. And so in 2019, my husband and I, and my mom and couples from our hall came and met then Paul and April and Virginia and Joe at lunch, had a wonderful conversation. And I just want to thank you for my spiritual family and sharing your experience, because it ended up helping a lot of people.
Hey, Virginia, this is Audrey Thomas.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. Joseph was a very interesting man. I didn't get to know him really well because we weren't in the same state, but he definitely contributed to the video, and I still tell people about him and how interesting he is. I am very much sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
I'd like to share a few thoughts, if I may. Years ago, I flew to Reno, Nevada, and I got to meet Brother and Sister Kempler. And it was actually the first time you guys were going to see yourselves in the documentary Knocking. And because Joel and Gardia realized that I was flying out there from San Diego, I was given a very nice seat right in front of the screen so I could watch the documentary Knocking. So I showed that video in my home theater over a 3-month period. 300 of the friends from all over San Diego came. I photographed the groups. I sent the pictures to Joel and Gardio for his encouragement. And 2 people that came to my home theater to watch Knocking got baptized.
Wow.
But also I met a lady who was a Holocaust survivor in the door-to-door work. Her name was Bianca Rothschild. She was Jewish. I asked her to come to my house and lecture us about her experiences, because she was locked up with the sisters in a camp called Ravensbrück. I had never heard of Ravensbrück before, so she came and talked with us. I also got to meet Brother Leopold Ingleitner 2 times, and his caregiver, Brother Bernard Rammerstorfer, kindly came to my house here in San Diego from Austria and gave us a lecture on the Holocaust here at my house. So as I told Mrs. Bianca Rothschild, and I will also say to the Kempler family, I can read about the history of the brothers and the Holocaust, watch documentaries, but to meet somebody that was actually there, that's a whole different learning experience. So I've read Brother Max Liebster's book, Sister Liebster's book. I've read about Felix Kersen, who's not a brother, but his history with Heinrich Himmler is amazing. So the next book I want is this book about Brother Kempler. So what's the best way for me to get my hands on it?
I just want to say that, I had no idea that Joe Kempler was an audio engineer, as I am. And that being an what they called him, an audio magnetivist, or and that was an important job. Sorry, go ahead.
Petition, he said.
Well, that meant that we, as far as I understand it, as an audio engineer, we took care of tapes and the archiving of those tapes, and of course helped develop, as was already explained, the development of new technology and all of that. But it's amazing to me that things that he helped preserve and do and work with clients to work on new technology. You know, Whitney Houston, Barbara Streisand, all these artists whose music that we love listening to, he actually had his hands on. It's really cool to me. I never knew that, Dave. I never knew that. You didn't share that with me. But you could have shared that with me. Hello. Anyway, very, very cool. And you know, I worked at Capitol myself for a few years, and I worked under some insanely talented engineers. And to know that I was in the same building with him, possibly at the same time, after a few years back, you know, 15 years ago, is pretty amazing. So thank you for that.
We really appreciate you being
Thank
on.
you. Thank you.
What I saw here, I saw Mike Zirkle. Mike.
Mike.
I want to see your face.
How are you?
Wow.
There
How are
you
you
are.
doing, Virginia?
Well, I'm overwhelmed, grateful, sad. I'm all those things, and very happy to see you.
Well,
Very happy to.
we have fond memories of you and Joe.
I have a picture of me and Donna in my kitchen that I look at all the time.
Well, the next picture is Donna and I seeing you and I seeing Donna and Joe. How's that?
That's awesome.
And
I want to be there for that one, and I want you guys. I was serious when I said it. I want to have this big old party when we bring all these ones back. I think it's going to be one of the happiest moments of our lives.
Absolutely.
well, I wanted to just say that
Jimi Hendrix and Mozart and everybody. Okay, I'll let you talk.
So, Virginia, I just wanted to say that one of the things that Don and I enjoyed was going in the ministry in La Cañada with Joe, and then
I have the video.
seeing him struggle, you know, to bring things out, but he did. And then seeing Knocking in Texas was just amazing to me. And we really enjoyed your visit when you came. And Paul, I never thought I'd see you bald.
I'm just trying. My dad.
That's an unfair shot. Not cool. Not
It's
cool.
not unfair. I am too.
Well, that's why I wear the ball cap, to cover the bald spot. Hello, Virginia. I don't know if you remember me. My name is Gil Ireland Ashley. I'm your son is a dear friend of mine. And we spent an evening together several years ago on the couch on the periphery of the after party at Peggy's memorial service. And David and Kelly were otherwise occupied with their hosting duties. So Joe and you and I spent the evening chatting, and I remember the delight that Joe took in learning that Dave's daughter, his granddaughter, and my daughter were both named Kelly. And I always remember the twinkle in his eye when he learned that. I remember that evening fondly, and I just wanted to express to you my sincere condolences on his passing. I hope you all take comfort in knowing that his suffering has ended. And I actually take some solace in knowing how loved he was and respected he was by so many people, how many people he touched based on how many people are here today. And I just wanted to send my love and condolences to David and Kelly and Anita and to Paul and his family, and especially to you, Virginia.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gil.
All right, I have to go back to work. Love to you all.
We permit it. Everybody, thank you very much. I think we have gotten a lot of joy and some good memories. And I think it's time. Yeah. It's been about 2 hours that we've been on. So we love you all very, very much. And we hope from you on an outside. If you'd like to reach Virginia Kempler, then please take down this email. Wait, let's all pretend we're frozen. vkempler@gmail.com. You'll be able to reach out to her directly if you didn't have that email. If you'd like to reach out to, what is your easiest email? Who are you speaking? You. I only have one. Okay. Dave's gonna give you email.
It's fine.
Don't complicate.
Okay. If you want to reach anybody, do it through V Kempler and she'll pass it on. And she has learned the last week to forward an email. So that is really good.
No, Dave's personal email.
I'm sorry.
Wow. Did you hear that? Sounded like a gunshot? That's a fireplace. It's real wood.
The wood is popping.
All right, everybody. I'm going to say goodbye for the Kempler family and thank you very much.
Very
Love you, Kempler.
Love you guys. Thank you.
See you.
Love you, Nita.
Thank you
Love
so
you,
much.
Chris, to
Thank
you.
you so
Bye.
much.
Bye.
We love
Bye.
you
Bye.
guys.
Bye bye.
Jehovah be with all
Later.
of you and comfort your hearts.
Anita, there's Nadia.
Love you.